We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata here. Mike, what is up?
Not much. What's up with you? Anything?
Well, not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. This Thursday night football always kind of throws the week off a little bit, but a huge matchup. And normally we would go back on our Tuesday show and we would talk a little bit about the Texans game. But honestly, there is so much to look forward to right now. There was big news from the Cincinnati Bengals practice when it comes to injury news. We'll start with the positive. I would say I was a little shocked. I shouldn't be because this guy played with a broken wrist towards the end of last season, which is absolutely insane. He's been one of the best free agent signings. But Trey Hendrickson returned, or not even returned. He was at practice today. They didn't have a practice yesterday. They're going right now as we're recording this. When the media was there, he was stretching. He was going through the pass rush drills. I'm feeling a little optimistic that Trey Hendrickson could be playing in this game.
Yeah. It, only fitting with after how bad people freaked out about it that he wouldn't even miss a single game. But yeah, it seems like it could be trending that way with him going to practice. Do we have an official report on what he did, or is it just the report about, he was there, he performed at drills?
So the thing is, when it comes to the media, when they're allowed to be at practice, it's really for the very first part of stretching, going through a little bit of the drills, but video evidence that he's going through the pass rush drills, going through the full stretch with the team. We'll obviously get the injury update report probably in about an hour or so after we were recording this, and they'll let you know, hey, if he went full go or if he was limited. But yeah, as far as being with the his group, he was out there doing those drills. But to be determined on his status, obviously, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to take his injury, and they do manage them well. So we'll see if Trey is good to go, but he's a menace, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is out there on Thursday night because that's just what he's always kind of done since he's been in Cincinnati. Not so great news as of now. Again, the game is in about 48 hours, 49 to be specific. Sam Hubbard wasn't out there. T. Higgins wasn't out there. Not too surprising when it comes to T. Higgins and the hamstring injury and a short week for him to be determined on his timeline. And then Andre Yossi was not out there too as of the media availability when they were at practice.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned it that T. Higgins and Sam Hubbard, short week. So you're not good on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Not to say you will not be good on Thursday, but it just makes it more likely that you may miss that game. The next couple days, I think, will be very important for them. But right now, obviously doesn't look good just yet. It's funny, though. It's like they weren't good for Sunday. And then they weren't good for Tuesday practice. Like, yeah.
No surprise.
Goes without saying, like that could happen, huh? But Wednesday, I guess that's, they're going to, that practice report's big. If you don't practice all week, I feel like that, makes it really difficult on whether you can play. But then again, short week. So, weird things sometimes happen. Guys don't practice all week and they can play. Just something to monitor. I don't really have a feeling on either one, whether they'll play or not. Mm-hmm. Weirdly, that you have the feeling that Trey Hendrickson has the best shot of playing of that group. But yeah, I don't even know when Yossi got hurt. I know he didn't play that much, and people were thinking he was going to play a ton in that game.
Yeah, hurt his knee in the game. I just can't remember if it was the first half or second half for him, but unfortunate.
Second half, didn't they throw the go ball that he stopped on, or was that in the first half?
I just, to be completely, okay. I'm losing when he went out. I just know he did go to the sidelines, so maybe it was more towards the second half for Yoshi. The big thing here is, and he's obviously been in practice for the last couple of weeks. He's with Joe Burrow right now. Joe is throwing to him when it comes to wide receivers. Charlie Jones. That's going to be something to monitor tomorrow. They have 52 men available right now, so they can activate him without releasing anyone. So it really feels like they've kind of left that open spot for Charlie Jones to be activated. I guess I would be a little surprised if I know he wasn't activated for the game on Sunday, but it seems like there has been no setbacks with him at practice. So I would think maybe he's activated tomorrow for the game on Thursday.
Maybe. We all thought it was possible he was activated last week. Didn't happen, but I don't know how much wide receiver he'll play if he does get activated. I see a lot of I think he takes over the punt return duty immediately, though,
Mhm.
and that's big. He was a really good punt returner when he was healthy, so that could help them in a game that I think we would both project to be very close. Special teams could be a key factor in whether or not the Cincinnati Bengals win this game. So we'd like to see him active.
Yeah. So offensively, defensively, and the Baltimore Ravens, they're dealing with injuries too. We'll have a guest on later in the show to talk a little bit about what's going on in Baltimore. But this is an AFC North matchup. The last time these two teams played, the Bengals came back from behind and they fell by 3 points. Obviously, everybody knows kind of how that game ended, and it really felt like it wasn't the 100% Joe Burrow, but felt like he was towards the finish line. Then he tweaked his calf again, not as bad, and about a few weeks later, Joe was back to being Joe. So. He even mentioned that in his press conference. He didn't have his full toolbox when he played the Baltimore Ravens in week 2. So obviously the atmosphere is going to be intense. It's Thursday Night Football. It's on the road. It's an AFC North game. The Baltimore Ravens are coming off a loss. Very strange game to the Cleveland Browns, and they fell in that one. And then the Cincinnati Bengals, they're hoping to get back in the win column because they still have a shot at their division. I know it's tough. It's the toughest division in football right now. It's crazy what these teams are doing when you look at the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their defense, credit to their defense for the way they've been playing. But overall, this if Cincinnati wants to stay in the AFC North race, this is an absolutely huge game. And you want to get another AFC win, not only just your division win, but also they only have one right now in the AFC. And that stuff is extremely important when you get down to the end in that conference play if you want to be in the postseason. So I'm not one of those, this is a must win. The season is over if they don't win. You definitely put yourself in a tough spot just because the other AFC teams that are playing for wild card spots right now we just saw the Houston Texans, who honestly, they could have a shot to take their own division the way the Jags dropped one to the 49ers on Sunday. So, the AFC, I wouldn't say the AFC is tough. I just think there's a lot of teams that are in it right now. And for the Cincinnati Bengals, this is a huge matchup and one you want to get from your rival in the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I think that this isn't a must-win game, but if you're looking at for just the division, it probably is, because if you dropped a 5-5 and and whatever in the AFC North, 0-3, yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
0-3 in the AFC North, 5-5 on the year. I mean, you technically could come back. You could finish 12-5, and that might just win it outright. And that'll put you at 3-3 because that's an undefeated from here out. But it becomes very unlikely that they can win the North if they lose this game. So it's not a must-win game because I don't think they're a team that needs home games in the playoffs. I don't think they're a team that would struggle as a wild card team, or that just throw them out if they're a wild card team. They can't go to Miami or Baltimore or where one of these places and win a game. I think they could, and then they only ever host one game a year, so it's not like they go on the road for a lot of their playoff games. They did last year. They beat Buffalo on the road. 2 years ago, they beat Kansas City, and they beat Tennessee on the road. So I think they can win road playoff games, but they have to make the playoffs too. And I would like a home playoff game. That'd be cool. So I'm hoping they win this game. I think it's not a must win, but I think it is there if you want to win the division. Then you can consider it a must win.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. It was a lot of doom and gloom after the Houston Texans game, and I get it. I think the replay of the Tyler Boyd touchdown just was on loop on my timeline. There were a lot of opportunities in that game for the Cincinnati Bengals, and there were opportunities for the Houston Texans to really kind of run away with that game. But credit to the defense for creating turnovers, and then obviously, let Joe cook. He can change this game. They have to rely on him. And I know you went back and you watched the tape about throwing downfield and just explosive plays for this offense. And they're without T. Higgins in this game, and Brian Callahan talked about it recently, and I agree with you. I think you had a really good tweet when you talk about Brian Callahan, and we've said it on this podcast. I honestly like his honesty. Maybe sometimes he's a little too honest for people, but I love it. I absolutely love it. And you know what? He tells you exactly what's going on with this offense right now. And I think as fans, I think people can appreciate that. I know how they criticize the play calling and everything like that, but it was a little different going into this game. I truly believe they probably didn't have a real firm grasp on if Jamar Chase was going to actually go on Sunday. And they were already without T. Higgins, and then Jamar could go on Sunday. So, overall, when you think about this offense and what they're facing in the Baltimore Ravens with, I would feel like a really tough and almost it sounds silly to call the Baltimore Ravens underrated. I just think the AFC North has a lot of tough defenses in it, but they're a good defense, even if Marlon Humphrey, who wasn't at practice today, it does look like he might be missing this game. But overall, with their defense, what do you think about this matchup for the Bengals offense if they're without T. Higgins and maybe Yoshi too?
Tough to feel good because they haven't done a good job against the Ravens in this year or last year offensively. Would love for them to just come out and be able to move the ball offensively. It's a very good defense. They've done a good job against a lot of teams. And I don't think the Bengals can replicate what the Browns did, scoring 31, because some of that was funky with some turnover type defensive scoring, and some of it was also a lot of run game, and we've talked a lot about it. The Bengals aren't going to run the ball down the Ravens' throat. That's not happening. They can't do that against any defense. So they got to figure out a way to move the ball through the air against this Ravens team, and they just haven't really done that the past 2 years. I do think there was some promising stuff towards the end of the game in week 2. Was that Baltimore letting up a little bit when they were up, or because I don't know if I believe that, but maybe it was something that they'll be able to get to again. I don't think that this Ravens defense is unbeatable. I don't think that there's something about it that's like, yeah, you just can't move the ball against them. I watched Joe Burrow and this Bengals offense do it in the second half of that game. They have to push the ball. They have to get to some of that stuff and work whatever was working. I think that's what I would think about with this matchup is, can you get the ball pushed through the air down the field? And they weren't able to do that in the first half of the last game, but they were able to do it in the second half. So whatever they did in the second half, make whatever was working, get back to that. Hopefully T. Higgins is there because he was big in that first game. Missed practice. I don't know how I'd feel like asking me today, is he going to play? I have no idea. And with missing practice, that doesn't look great to start, but I think that would be huge for them. If not, got to work with what you got, and they still have some playmakers. So we'll see. I don't feel great about that, but I still think on paper they should be able to move the ball. They haven't done that the past couple of years in this matchup.
And you went back and you watched the Texans game. For me, I was kind of questioning why they never went back to Tanner Hudson. It seemed to work on that first drive a lot for them.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. This is the first game that they played the most Drew Sample. And I don't know. That's interesting to me because, he has – I think they honestly played one too many snaps of him, which was just basically probably shouldn't have been on the field for that 4 vertical call with the seam ball to him.
That was a bad decision. And I wouldn't even say for Joe Burrow. I just think it was the wrong person to be giving.
Yeah. And I don't even know, Sample, what's he going to – that's just what he is as an athlete. Asking him to do that is he can't really do that. Put the ball on him, he'll catch it. But put it up in the air like that, his catch radius isn't crazy. But I thought it was interesting because they kind of valued his blocking, but in a game where maybe you could have used the extra receiver a little bit more in this game. They only ran the ball 11 times. And I will say when Sample was on the field, they ran the ball better than when he wasn't on the field. He's a good run blocker. Did another good job in this game run blocking. But it's interesting. I don't know. Hudson and Irv, they don't really give you anything as run blockers. So that's the real issue is, to me, Hudson's been the better receiver, but they paid Irv, and Irv has the pedigree and whatever else, so they think he could get going. And there is some stuff that Hudson did that I'm like, okay, I think Irv could do that. But I also just think Hudson being that size is just big for a tight end. Like that's what you expect, to be that big as a tight end. You don't expect them to be 6'2" like Irv Smith is. And it's not a knock against Irv. It's just, it's tough. He's basically a wide receiver out there. So I don't know. We'll see what happens in this one. I wouldn't be that surprised if Sample gets a lot of snaps again, just because could use the blocking in this game, I guess. And if the other guys aren't going to be great receivers, you know, at least somebody's providing value blocking.
Speaking of blocking, just overall, when you think about that game or you go back and watch that game, it's so unfortunate because the trenches got owned on both sides of the ball for the Cincinnati Bengals. And this offensive line, which I feel like we've praised at a lot of times. I feel like I've praised it a lot in the last year and a half, to be completely honest with you, obviously outside of the injuries in the AFC Championship game. But overall, I felt like it was okay. It was going to be one of Joe Burrow's best offensive lines that he's had in Cincinnati. But, you can't that they will not get anywhere on Thursday night if we see that again.
I agree. Mm-hmm. I think the Texans have a better pass rush than the Ravens, but at the same time, they do have some guys like look at Odafe Owe, and you look at Jadeveon Clowney. I was like, which guy did they sign for 1 year that is outperforming what we expect again?
He's on the injury report, so that's something to monitor.
He's been good this year. Matabike, he's also been good, interior guy, since that's what's really been killing the Bengals this year. Just need better protection. I mean, when you rewatch the 5 punt drives, there's some stuff everywhere. Like there's some play calls that are like, okay, what are we doing here? There's some decisions passing the ball. It's like you probably could have pushed the ball instead of dumping it off to the running back here. There's also guys aren't getting open. And the biggest one to me, those 3 were there, but the biggest one is pass protection was bad on those drives. That was just stood out as like nobody is really winning these blocks. And it's concerning to have pass protection of that level in a game because it's hard to win when you can't block. And that comes in the run game and the pass game. The Bengals offensive line had their worst game in weeks. And that was kind of the key matchup, was who's going to win the trenches in this, because it's a pretty good Texans offensive line against a pretty good Bengals defensive line. Texans offensive line won that battle, and it was a solid Texans pass rush against what was playing at a solid level Bengals offensive line, and the Texans pass rush won that battle. So you go into another week and it feels a little similar. It's like, who's going to win the trenches battle in this Ravens-Bengals game? Is it going to be the Ravens? I think the Bengals have a chance that they could win it. When you hold up against the 49ers, I feel like you can hold up against most teams, but can you hold up in this game? It just feels like it's not a consistent, like, yeah, they held up against the 49ers. That means they'll hold up against any team as good or around as good as the 49ers. Not true, but we'll see. We'll see which Bengals offensive line shows up. And I'm a little bit concerned right now that Orlando Brown is just dealing with something, because I saw too many guys be able to push him straight backwards and just no anchor on him. And it was a little there before, and I just kind of chalked that up to, yeah, he's not a technically sound pass protector, even though this hasn't been an issue before. It wasn't there. And when you're 350 pounds, I've already heard the excuses that this is somehow Frank Pollock's. This is a grown 350-pound man. He needs to stop people from going through his body. That is not on the offensive line coach. He knows how to stop it. He's done it in the past. This is on the player. That's also something with like all these vets. It's like it's more on them than anything. Like protection misses and stuff, blame the offensive line coach. The individual player not playing up to what you're expecting, that's on that player.
It's like
Volson, I guess, would be the one guy that's like he hasn't developed as much. Well, he's also a 4th-round pick that's 24 when he was drafted.
It reminds me of the Buffalo Bills situation right now. They get rid of the OC, and it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do with your turnover problems? your quarterback can't keep turning the ball over. So not that Joe Burrow, I do not put both of those interceptions.
No, but it's just throwing the offensive line coach away, or throwing,
Yeah.
in that case, the offensive coordinator away because you're just frustrated, or
Yeah.
you don't like the results that are happening right now. And it's not on them. That offensive coordinator isn't the one throwing the ball to the other team. And in this case, the offensive line coach isn't the one out there performing below expectations. Alex Kappa and Orlando Brown and all these guys, they just got to play better. The only guy that I think that you can look to right now, maybe you can Jonah Williams a bit if you want. I don't think people will, because he's actually improved. But if you look at Cordell Volson, you're like, okay, that's his one piece. Well, like, that wasn't a big ball of clay for him to mold into what he wants. That's a 4th round draft pick from North Dakota State who's 24 years old when he was drafted. That's tough. Yeah. And we're dealing with it all the time about, like, I don't think Frank Pollock is like Bill Callahan, but I think he gets scapegoated. And I think a lot of fans have specific scapegoats on different parts of the team.
Boy.
That's why things aren't working. It's, Zach Taylor's a play caller at times. And the funny one is when it's about, like, the ball gets, thrown to the flat too often. Well, that's Burrow. Burrow's making that decision, guys. It's not on Taylor. Blame Taylor for nothing being open sometimes, maybe, but you can also blame wide receivers for that. And then when it comes to the offensive line protection, a lot of that's on those offensive linemen individually, in my opinion. When it comes to, like, they missed protection pickups, sure, you can blame the offensive line coach there. He didn't get them prepared for that. But when it comes to a guy's just running right through you, that's on that player, especially Orlando Brown. He's a pro. He's been in the league 6 years. There's not something that the offensive line coach is doing that's making him let guys run through him.
They paid him that money for a reason. So you got to step up. You got to step up. You need to protect the franchise. And kind of flipping sides really quickly on the defensive side of the ball, speaking of trenches, look, it would be huge if Trey Hendrickson is out there. I do want to see more out of, not to replace him, but I want to see more out of these guys when it comes to Joseph Asai, Miles Murphy when you get the opportunities, Cam Sample. It's really disappointing what we've seen from Joseph Asai this season, because he was going to be one of my breakout players. And I don't really even trust him when he's on the field right now. And that is extremely disappointing, because you take out the last play in the AFC Championship game, we should be talking about his performance and what he did in the AFC Championship game. And it really has been lost ever since.
Yeah, he was really good in that game. And then obviously the last thing happened. But in that game, very good. And it was against Orlando Brown, weirdly enough. Now he's been the worst guy in the edge rotation. I think it's clear that Cam Sample and Miles Murphy have played better than him. And obviously Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson have played better than him. So you're still giving him snaps, just hoping, like, just do what you did last year. Like, bring it back. Like, you've got that in you, and it's just not there. For whatever reason, he's not winning as a pass rusher. And in run defense, he was the guy on that reverse that was the reason it went for a big gain. He was supposed to be contain and boot, and he was not there. He ran down the line, and the ball went the other way. He wasn't in any position to stop it. So he's been frustrating and disappointing.
Yeah, overall on the defensive side of the ball, you want to see more out of the trench and the defensive line, because it does feel like they will be without Sam Hubbard, and you got to stop the run when you look at this Baltimore Ravens offense. And then obviously Lamar Jackson, he's a mobile quarterback. Next, we're going to talk to one of our guests, and we'll get a little more from the outside when we look at the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals on Thursday Night Football. Hi, Rita.
Good. Today is Tuesday. Happy Tuesday.
Yes, it is Tuesday. I know it throws me up. It throws me off right now. What's your last name?
Hubbard.
Hubbard. Oh, well, that's easy to remember.
Yeah.
Yes. I always make a joke that Sam Hubbard is my cousin.
Hey, he's been the topic of conversation in Cincinnati this week with his injury, so that'll be very easy to remember. Awesome. And then, Spencer, are you going to put her media stuff on the?
Her media stuff's ready to go. So we'll just tape her segment with Cincinnati. Then Mike will bounce. Then I'll get her stuff all ready to go. So I'm going to remove myself, and you guys can kind of go whenever.
Sounds awesome. We'll do a 3, 2, 1. We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Really short week for the Cincinnati Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens. A huge matchup. I know a lot of NFL fans are excited about this one on Thursday Night Football. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to hit the road. We have a special guest from Baltimore, Reeta Hubbard. How are you doing, Rita?
Thank you guys for having me. Yes, it is a very, very short week, but I guess we'll make this do what it does.
Yeah, one of the biggest things right now in Cincinnati is obviously Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, T. Higgins. Who can go there? We're at the point of the season where injuries are a thing, and it always feels like injuries are the storyline when we play the Baltimore Ravens. When it comes to the health of the team right now, how's everybody doing, and is there anything that's standing out?
So on our end, it looks like Ronnie Stanley and Marlon Humphrey, if I had to guess, they won't be playing on Sunday. They're listed as day to day, but they just sustained injuries in the Browns game on Sunday. So that's problematic as well. You're losing your left tackle and your one of your best cornerbacks. The good thing if the Ravens look at it this way is that neither one of those guys played in the first game against Cincinnati. So that could be a thing, but they're also without Morgan Moses, who has missed a couple of weeks at right tackle. It's not ideal, obviously, to have both your left tackle and your right tackle be out. So that is something that we've been watching. Although he's been a full participant in practice, we just have not seen him make it to the field. So they're hopeful that is going to happen as well. So aside from that, it doesn't seem to be a whole lot of injuries currently in terms of guys not being able to play on Thursday. Humphrey and Ronnie Stanley are the ones that I think that we have to watch out for the most, because if that's the case, they're going to have to use Pat McCarry at left tackle. And again, if Morgan Moses doesn't play, they're probably going to have to use a second-year player, Daniel Faalele, at right tackle. And then I'm sure Mike McDonald will use probably 3 safeties, if I have to guess, to try to help out the cornerback situation, because there's some depth issues going there as well if Marlon can't play.
There were a few. It feels like there's a few different, differences in what the Ravens are doing right now versus what happened week 2. One of them, at least to my highlight viewing, was Keaton Mitchell. That guy didn't even play in week 2, I don't think. I think it was all Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. So is there anything else that has changed, at least, personnel-wise, with some names we might not recognize from that week 2 game? Or is it mostly just, they kind of made a swap at running back with Keaton Mitchell getting some carries?
Yeah, so Keaton Mitchell really just got his big, first game a couple weeks ago against Seattle. He's been on the roster for a while, but I believe he was on the IR for the first couple of weeks this season, and then he came off and got some action there. And it's funny because he did not receive much action in the Browns game, and a lot of fans questioned that. And Harbaugh had said in his press conference, okay, well, we could have done better. He only had 3 carries, I believe, in that game, after having the great game that he had against Seattle. And he scored a touchdown as well in the Browns game. So that was very interesting to see him kind of go ghost in that regard. In terms of other players, no, I mean, Geno Stone has obviously been a guy that has played well on defense. I believe he currently leads the league in interceptions. So that's something that really didn't transpire, obviously, in week 2. You're finally seeing Odell Beckham Jr. get more involved. And that's something that we really didn't get an opportunity to see back then. He just scored his 2nd touchdown of the season in Sunday's game. But essentially, it is the same guys. I think Mark Andrews, that was his first game back week 2. So you didn't really see a whole lot of Mark Andrews action because he was still coming back from an injury. But he's been more productive in this offense as the weeks have gone on.
Yeah, Mark Andrews, I think the Cincinnati Bengals, anytime they think of a tight end or this defense trying to cover a tight end, you almost just let Mark Andrews eat. He's guaranteed to get his in these matchups. But one of the things that kind of stands out over the beginning of the season, I know they just lost to the Cleveland Browns, but Lamar Jackson's connection with the new OC. He's had an incredible year and, an MVP candidate. What do you make of Lamar so far this season?
Lamar has done really great in terms of a lot of things. He has really found a way to try to stay in the pocket as long as possible, probably more than I'd like to see him in some situations. But I also understand the logic of, he's tired of being perceived as just this guy that can run the ball, that passes sometimes. He wants to be perceived as a quarterback. And so this offense, I think, does allow it. But Lamar does have a fumble problem, whether it be you believe that he's the person responsible or the running back, because a lot of times it's RPO situations where, there's they're trying to pass it off and Lamar intends to keep it, and there's some miscommunication there. But ultimately, he has had some fumbles. in a lot of games. There's been, some interceptions, and I'm not even talking about the batted down pass that happened in the Browns game on Sunday, but there was another interception that he had trying to get the ball to Rashad Bateman. So the turnovers have been a thing, and I feel like potentially it would leave him out of an MVP conversation. But if he can find a way to get those tied together, tie those loose ends when it comes to the turnovers, particularly fumbles, because interceptions isn't really his issue. It's been the fumbling that's been the issue. Then I think that we could have it would be a conversation of MVP that would have more stability to it as of right now.
Who do you think out of this wide receiver group has the best shot of having the biggest game? Not Mark Andrews. He's tight end. I'm not going to count him, but everybody else. So I feel like Zay Flowers. That felt like, he was really important. Weirdly, Nelson Aguilar. I don't know if he's still doing well, but seeing him catch a touchdown, sure. that felt like a weird moment. It was just like, I guess they're all just going to kill us today. But maybe he's doing well. I don't know. And then Rashad Bateman, first round pick. I don't know how he's done this year. And Odell obviously caught his second touchdown. So is it just a conglomerative effort to put something together, or do any of these guys separate themselves as like, that looks like the best player out of this group?
I mean, I really feel like Odell still has something in the tank. I mean, if it's a situation where they can get him in some quick slants and get the ball to him, it's, he's getting separation there. He's also getting respect from his opposition. So that helps. To me, though, Zay Flowers is the guy that I would be looking at. He is really good with running routes. He is so crisp with what he does. He gets separation. He has the hands, and he is a rookie, but he doesn't look like a rookie. I mean, he's already out there making impact plays, and I really feel like Zay is a guy that they should probably get more involved in this offense. Early on in the season that we saw that Todd Monken clearly liked Zay Flowers a lot and was trying to get the ball to him a lot. And then as the weeks have gone on, he shared the load. But in my opinion, you got to get it to him. And I think that Rashad Bateman over time, because in the beginning of the season, he had some mental breakdowns. But as the season has gone on, he's gotten better. Him and Lamar have had better connections. So that has also been something that's been helpful as well. But Zay Flowers, man, for him to be a rookie and for him to look so polished already, I really feel like he is the X factor threat in this offense, sans Mark Andrews.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that they can run the ball right now on this defense without Sam Hubbard. Well, to be determined if Sam Hubbard plays in this game. But we'll flip sides. One of the things the Bengals struggled with in the Houston Texans game is their offensive line. They played one of their worst games, honestly, in the last year with all of them together. When you think of the Ravens D-line up against this offensive line, how do you like that matchup?
So the Ravens, in terms of pass rush, has been okay, in terms of the guys that they have up front. A lot of their sacks, it's been a collective effort. 13 different players have had sacks, which means there's guys that are linebackers are getting sacks. There's cornerbacks, defensive backs, they're getting sacks. So it's a collective effort because I think that that's something that they've struggled with early on. Now, you do have a guy like Justin Madubuike. He had like 6 straight games, I believe, with a sack. He's been playing at a phenomenal level, but he's also up for a new contract too, right? So there's that part. He's trying to get that payday going on, and that's been helpful. 2 people that have really been something to talk about with this Ravens team are 2 guys that weren't on the roster last year, which is Kyle Van Noy, who essentially just came off the street, and I think he already has 5 sacks for this team because he didn't even start the season, with the Ravens. He came in after Adafe Away came in. But then also you have Jadeveon Clowney, who's also played very well, obviously coming from Cleveland as well. So, for them to have the experienced guys being the ones that are the concerns that the Bengals have at the pass rush kind of says a lot about what I consider to be a weak part of this Ravens team, which is, to me, they don't get a ton of pressure with the guys up front, but there are other guys that make up for that.
Yeah. When you look at the linebacker room. That's what scares me with this Baltimore Ravens defense. I think it sounds silly. I was telling Mike before you got on here, it feels like an underrated group that they don't get enough credit just because the AFC North is loaded with good defensive talent. But the Baltimore Ravens, every time they play the Cincinnati Bengals, I honestly think it's going to be a low-scoring game, to be completely honest with you. And it's just going to be a slugfest, what it always is with these two teams over the last few matchups. It's been 2 points. It's been 3 points. You obviously had the regular season ending, then the playoff game. But no, I'm expecting a good matchup. But Mike, do you have any more before we get a little prediction from Reeta?
No, it's Kyle Van Noy. I was like, yeah, I think he got signed after week 2, and he's just had 5 sacks in that period. So that's definitely a name to watch. And then Geno Stone, obviously, he's continued. That game was his first game, and he had the big pick. So it seems like he's continued that. That wasn't just like a one-off game. And I don't know. I feel like there's no coach that can just get the most out of like random guys, either off the street or off the back of the bench, than John Harbaugh. It just seems like they're always dealing with injuries, and it's like, who are these corners? And then it's like, oh, they're playing really well. So good for them. Any areas of concern that you have with this Ravens defense? I mean, they've won the matchup against this Bengals offense the past few years.
Yeah, my concern is definitely the run defense. I've seen some concerns last week in the Cleveland game. Ford had a good outing. Kareem Hunt was able to get some push. Even Deshaun Watson was moving the ball around with his legs. In the Arizona game a couple of weeks before that, it was a kid that I'd never even heard of before. Don't ask me his name because I don't remember. But this kid was really, doing well in that game as well. So their run defense is something to watch. And Joe Mixon, obviously, for the Bengals is a phenomenal running back. I mean, he can do it all. He can run, he can pass, he can catch the passes in the backfield. And it's just something that's a concern in terms of him just getting between the tackles because he is an elusive back. So that is the matchup that obviously, you got to still be concerned about Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and such, and even Irwin that they utilized a lot on Sunday's game. But for me, that run defense, because I've seen them be vulnerable in certain spots, Joe Mixon for me is my biggest concern.
Reeta needs to remind Bengals fans Trent Irwin plays on the team because they get excited about those rookies. But yes, Trent Irwin is someone who has stepped up this season. But overall, I mean, we're going to have you on here. The AFC North is absolutely wild right now. It really feels like it's going to be a fun finish for all of these teams. But for the Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, Thursday Night Football, huge matchup. Give me your prediction. What's going to happen?
First of all, I want to apologize that my cat likes
to have
she loves to have FaceTime, and she does this every time we do our podcast. So I apologize, guys, that my cat wants to have a cameo performance.
We love it. We love
it. I'm with you on this. Listen, I go back and forth about this. My partner Cordell from Winning Drive picked the Bengals, and I felt like, well, he picked the Bengals. Somebody got to pick the Ravens, so I did, and obviously we both picked them to be close games. Cordell really feels like the Bengals because they're currently, which to me means nothing at the moment, but I get it, currently at the bottom of the division. They're pressing, and they're going to be pressing, and they're going to be fighting to try to get back. Although, I mean, all 5 teams right now currently would be in the 4 would be in the playoffs if the season ended today. So I understand the logic behind that, and he's right that they probably will be like, we can't afford to lose another AFC conference game when you start looking at the playoff picture. So he picked the Bengals. I picked the Ravens mainly because I feel like if Hubbard doesn't play, if Hendrickson doesn't play, I always feel like Tyler Boyd is the guy that goes off because T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are the factors that everyone cares about. So Tyler Boyd is always the X factor. Well, if Tyler Boyd is the number 2, then it's like, well, I'm concerned about who's the person that the Ravens feel like that they have to be concerned for. So I'm with you. I do think it's going to be a close game. I think it'll come down to a field goal, but I think that the Ravens will find a way to win. And again, my partner Cordell said that the Bengals will win. So we're different. We're on different ends of it, but we both think there's going to be a close game. We both think both teams are going to be pressing to try to find a win because both teams lost on Sunday.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's always that field goal walk off. I don't want Tucker to get so close. I mean, they could be 60 yards out, and I'm like, he's gonna hit the walk off, no doubt. There it is.
Now, the good thing about this for the Bengals, not for the Ravens, is that Tucker has struggled post 50-yard field goals this season. And while I'm not ready to have a conversation about this yet, because some of it has been holds, in the snaps, it's something to look at. So if the Ravens are in a position to try to win it with a field goal and it's 50 plus yards, I'm just saying that there's a chance it might not happen.
I love it. I always go 23-20 when I'm like, it's going to be a close game. It's probably going to be a field goal and it feels like a safe score. So that's what it'll go. And it's a Cincinnati podcast, so I'll probably take Cincinnati, but would I be surprised if they drop this game? Not at all. Honestly, it's going to be two tough teams, two talented teams. I know that, the record doesn't show for the Cincinnati Bengals, but I would put Baltimore and Cincinnati right there at the very top of the AFC North, because they are just two talented, fun teams, and they have their quarterback. And that is the biggest thing in the NFL right now. But Mike, what's your quick prediction?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Bengals are going to be able to run the ball well enough to take advantage of this. So I'm going 21-20 Ravens. I think I think some people are excited for two of the best teams. It's going to be a shootout. But I think we're all going
no.
Never happens that way.
AFC North football, it's going to be a knockout, drag out type matchup, I think. So could go either way. Hubbard possibly being out, it's a big one too, because I feel like he usually plays well in this game and he's been important for it.
Well, Reeta Hubbard, thank you so much getting the Baltimore Ravens side. I'm really excited about this matchup. Again, we're recording on a Tuesday night. Should be a good game. Thursday Night Football.
Yes.